Thank you so much for spending some time to view this important message. I want to share.
For one Alberta father, that's what it's come down to. He wants the right to school his children at home according to his Christian values and without government interference. He says it is the will of God. The Alberta government, on the other hand, insists it has the right, the duty, to ensure his children get a proper education. As Judy Piercy reports, it's a fight headed for the courts, a fight that will shape the future of homeschooling in this province.
Clovis is learning how to read this morning. He's focusing
It's a big job to feed 9 children 3 times a day. But when it comes to nourishing her children's souls and their minds, Joanne Barendrag is motivated by more than motherly love. It's her Christian duty. A duty that compels her to teach them at home, away from the public schools she thinks would feed them modern ideas harmful to their spiritual health.
So, for example, Nellie McClung, was she a woman to be admired? Did she give women rights? Was she good for women, or was she not?
What letter is that?
Yeah. We believe that a girl's first place is that she's taught to be a good mother and a good wife, because that's her ordained. That's what God created us to be.
Instilling that purpose begins every morning when the Barendrag's kitchen is turned into a one-room schoolhouse. It's been that way for 10 years since the family pulled its 2 eldest children out of school. When the Barendrags refused to send their children to school, they landed in the middle of a huge dispute. On the one hand, families like theirs who believe the way they educate their children is none of the government's business. And on the other hand, the government, with a legal duty to make sure that all of Alberta's children get a proper education.
You give me my Bible.
10 years later, that conflict has become a legal dispute.
Boom.
The Barendrags are breaking the law, and they say they'll go to jail to keep teaching their kids at home.
When a man puts his hand to the plow, says the Bible, you don't look back. We're not going to look back. Our Father in heaven, we come before Thee at the afternoon of this beautiful day.
The family sits down at the dinner table,
Amen.
all 11 of them, 3 times a day, sharing food, love, and prayer, teaching by example.
Dick and me don't raise our children and say, well, we're inherently good, that's why we have what we have. No, we're no better than anyone else, but we have been taught by our parents, and we're passing that on to our children, that we do the things we do because God says so, and don't meddle with Him.
The family doesn't want anyone meddling in its affairs either.
You can't take that foot.
So when they first pulled their children out of school, they kept to themselves. They knew they were breaking the law. Their children were truant. Hidden away in their tiny corner of Alberta, they quietly went about living their lives on the farm. But their local MLA, Ken Kowalski, urged them to go public. He happened to be the deputy premier at the time.
He would say, Dick, this is not the Soviet Union. This was in 1990, 1986, 87, 88 probably, around there, 89. It's not the Soviet Union, he used to say. This is Alberta. Come on.
The family took him at his word. They would hide no longer. They started publishing Quest, a magazine for homeschoolers, spreading the word right across Canada. The homeschooling movement was growing. The Barendrags are part of a tight-knit homeschooling community. Twice a year, they gather to socialize and support one another. And this group is part of an even larger community. Their children among the 8,000 Alberta kids being homeschooled. Homeschooling is not just legal here, the government actually pays for it. In return, certain rules must be followed. Children have to be registered with a school board, and the government tests them every 3 years. Education Minister Gary Marr thinks it's a successful compromise.
Well, Albertans expect us to have a good education system for kids, and that part of a good education system is maintaining certain standards of education. And while we give many different opportunities for parents to choose within that system, we do have an obligation to ensure that all children are going through a school program that is a good educational program.
Shall we begin the afternoon activities with a word of prayer?
But many of the Barondregs' friends and neighbors believe the government rules on homeschooling violate their religious freedom. They refuse to let the government into their lives.
In the name of Jesus.
I never signed an agreement that my child belonged to the state. When my child was born, he was registered as a citizen of this country. Now, does that make me, or do I then have to follow all laws, whether they go against my religious beliefs or not? Of course not. If there's, and especially in this case, like I'll follow all the laws as long as they acknowledge the Word of God. But as soon as they step over that line, there's no compromise.
With glowing hearts we see thee rise.
It's a harmonious and homogeneous Canada that thrives in this tiny Alberta village. Members of the same congregation, farmers with a strong Dutch heritage, and an even stronger work ethic.
Do you know why he dresses like this and why Dutch people have St. Nicholas?
Celebrating values reinforced by the history they teach their children. A history taught in books that would never pass muster in the Alberta curriculum. There, it would be considered intolerant.
See how the Indians are being destroyed by the white traders because they did not have the moral backbone to stand up to the corrupt white traders who took advantage of their weaknesses.
And moral weakness is what the Barondregs see when they look at today's education system.
The secular system has decided that in order to meld all of these cultures, they would just not teach any of them. So, or all of them, but not one above the other. And so what you end up in the end is with nothing.
This is our society. This is our Alberta. It's my Canada. Okay? Am I going to give it to the homosexuals? Or to the abortionists? Certainly not. But the only way we can keep that is by engaging in the spiritual battle and making other people aware that this battle is really going on. And so you go out there and you promote the gospel. You let your light shine, as the gospel would say.
Letting his light shine so brightly attracted the attention of the school board. It came after the family for breaking the law. One day, Dick Barondreg was out working in the barn when a truancy officer came to the front door.
As I was speaking to him, Dick walked in the door. Oh, he said, I'm so-and-so, and I want to give you these papers. And Dick said, no, you just take them back and just tell them we don't accept them. Not in this way. But he shoved them into the corner of the steps, and he left. So he left, but he had cowboy boots on, and it was just mud, and it was just such a mess. And Dick had big farm boots on, so he took the papers and he laid them in his car, and he said, take them back. And so he turned around in the yard, and as he drove out of the driveway, he just chucked them out of his window, and they landed in the mud in the driveway.
If the confrontation was dramatic, it was because the stakes are high. When children aren't registered with the school board, the government has the right to force them back to school.
And I want to be very clear. That's not going to happen. It's not. Whose children are they?
Desperate and determined, the Barondregs took their fight to the internet. They set up their own website and spread the word that the government was harassing them. Told the whole world that Joanne Barondreg was forced to attend a truancy hearing when she was 8 months pregnant with her 9th child. Things settled down. The government adjourned the hearing and didn't take the family to court. Such a court case would cut a sharp division through Alberta's political landscape. This is the Bible Belt, the very heartland of conservative Alberta, a land that belongs to people like the Barondregs. And after 10 years of lobbying, Dick Barondreg surely belongs to the politics as much as to the land.
Well, we have letters from just about every cabinet minister. I would say most of the MLAs.
He's become a Tory insider. His folder's stuffed with the efforts of his lobbying. Letters from powerful cabinet ministers on the Christian right. Even Premier Ralph Klein promised to talk to the education minister.
So they have a real big problem. Here's this guy, he's not going to move. His wife is supporting him. He's got 9 kids there. He runs a private business in the city of Edmonton. A lot of guys are getting to know him. He's got God on his side.
I have met with Mr. Barondrek. We've exchanged correspondence. I've had people from the Department of Education go out and visit Mr. Barondrek at his home.
The Barondrekes held their ground, despite a visit from the Assistant Deputy Minister, accompanied by the minister's own assistant.
Mr. Barondrek's worldview is in accordance with what he believes to be an interpretation of the Scriptures. As a result, there's no room for compromise on Mr. Barondrek's part. And we are working hard to try and have him see a compromise situation where both his interests are served and his children's interests are served, and the interest of the province is also upheld and served.
Just write this one and this one.
But the family claims to be far from alone in defending the interest of homeschoolers like themselves. They claim to have enlisted the support of parents of 6,000 unregistered kids.
We're not asking for anything from him. Nothing at all. We're not asking for money. We're not even asking for permission. We're saying to him, this is what we're doing, and tell us where we are not good, where it is wrong what we're doing. And he can't, he won't. He agrees that it's good, but he says it's, you know, it's just a matter of control. They just want to control.
Failure to abide by the law will have consequences, and Mr. Barondrek will have to decide whether or not he is prepared to accept those consequences for failure to abide by the law.
I said earlier that we're taking a stand, and we don't move. I can't. If it takes going to jail, well, then you'll be paying for my room and board. Isn't that ridiculous?
And so an impasse remains, each side driven by a compelling duty. The government with the power to force the Barondrek children to attend a school.
And these words which I command you today shall be in your heart.
The parents willing to go to jail to prevent that, and a destiny for the children that will almost certainly be determined by the courts.
The Lord, he can see everything.
Judy Piercy, CBC News, Nearlandia.
Right.
We'd like to give you a chance to tell us what you think about anything you see on the CBC Edmonton News. Call our talkback line at 1-888-654-TALK. That's 1-888-654